Good morning, friends. It is Gary Morris from the Level Up series and the DLC group of companies. It is Thursday, October 15th, and I am super excited this morning to be hosting this Level Up series call with someone I hold in immense regard, someone who I think has been at the very forefront of sales and marketing training for many, many, many years. My guest this morning, Mr. Jeffrey Fox, has been a best-selling author of more than 11 or 12 books personally, and then he's done some ghostwriting work. His books today have been translated into more than 40 languages. Jeffrey is a speaker. He's an executive coach. He's a lecturer. He has many training programs for some of the largest, organizations where he specializes in marketing, sales training, and leadership. Jeffrey spends most of his time now between Connecticut and apparently an incredible place called Upper Kativa Island in Florida. And he's got 3 children and 3 grandkids. Jeffrey, I'm so excited to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are things in Connecticut? Gorgeous
today, gorgeous fall. I'm overlooking the Connecticut River as I'm speaking to all you folks.
Interesting. Now, has your world, and I guess as an author, you probably spend a lot of time yourself and are very introspective. But has your world changed during COVID-19? The vibe, how you spend your time, how you operate day to day, or is it relatively status quo?
Well, the good news is that Zoom exists. So I've been able to replace 100 million miles of airplane flights and all that jazz with Zoom with a lot of our clients. And we're getting very good at using Zoom. And so that's the good news. According to my wife, I'm home more, which is, I guess, good. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's funny. Our organization in Canada, during a very difficult time with the pandemic, we're actually having record years in the Canadian finance. And, I sort of relate that to maybe, you have kind of survivor's guilt and you feel like you almost shouldn't. But I look at it and think like there's a silver lining in every tragedy. And one of those silver linings you just actually referred to, we've become much better with digital conferencing. So because of that, we're more efficient. The sales cycle is shorter. We're communicating more frequently. I think in many ways, it's making all of us take that leap and become much better.
Oh, yeah. What's interesting is that some people take COVID and all these there's always something. There's always a COVID.
Right.
There's a recession, there's this. And some people hunker down and some people sally forth into the fray. And those who, whether it's on email or voice to voice or face, whatever, those who are out there selling win more than those who
get caught up in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. Well, before we start and jump right in today to all of the DLC, MCC, MA networks, to everyone in the Canadian finance space, to anyone who's maybe watching this on live stream, this is a series that we try to do a couple times a month, and we always feature amazing guests. And the focus for us is always to try to help, make people better and make us better at what we do and better communicators and better in business. This is open to anyone on a live stream. You don't have to be with us. If you make a comment online or post a question, we are going to choose 50 of you that have sent questions in or made comments or shared it with a friend. And my assistant, Tara, is going to make sure all of you get one of Jeffrey's book. This is actually one of my favorite books Jeffrey has ever written. I think it was written in 2001. We started our company in 2006. And the Rainmaker's Credo has been a big part of my life. We're going to talk about that today. So if you're all there and you do have questions, you have someone who has created a very illustrious career on sales and marketing. And what I love best about Jeffrey and his communication and his writing style is that it's no nonsense. It is blunt. It is tell it as it is. It is call you out. And I think that's very refreshing. So super excited about that. Jeffrey, we can sort of jump right in, but before we do, I would love to hear, just to set the stage, about sort of like how you're raised, your upbringing. I know I read somewhere that you watched Mickey Mantle play baseball in Yankee Stadium and hit some home runs. Can you give us kind of a maybe the history of you, where you grew up, went to school, how you got and became an author, and tell us about Mickey Mantle.
Well, yeah, I grew up in a small town and single mom kind of deal, right? And so in Connecticut, New York City is like 2 hours away. So myself and another guy used to hitchhike down to New York City, literally, go to a Yankee game, then take the subway down, stay up all night, take the subway down to Greenwich Village. I saw Bob Dylan when he first started, passing the hat. So I had a very great unsupervised single mom kind of thing, unsupervised childhood.
Yeah.
But I think when I saw Mantle, he was, of course, the greatest player ever lived. And if he had taken care of himself, he would have been even better. Switch hitter, could hit like crazy. He was amazing. But the Yankees which is maybe relevant to this audience, their deal is, we're here to win. Somebody got traded from the Yankees 2 years ago. And someone said to him, what's it like being traded? He said, oh, so thrilled. All they think about back there is winning.
Wow.
Yeah. So
crazy.
Yeah. So watching, I think, as growing up, I was a big reader of biographies of great people and watched great people and, never judgmental about their own personal life, but rather about their performance and skills and so forth. I'll tell you a story I thought of. This is kind of weird maybe, but I grew up when I was little, like 5 years old, 6 years old, I think it was 5. My family lived in the top third floor of a remodeled mansion on a street in Hartford, Connecticut. And some of the other mansions were still mansions. People lived there. And we had a snowstorm, maybe a quarter of an inch, half an inch, whatever. And so I went to the mansion next door. I was 5. I went to the mansion next door. It was my first sale with a shovel. And I shoveled off a couple of steps on the mansion's front. And this woman opened the door, and I thought she was like, ancient. She's probably about 30. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm shoveling the snow off your steps. And she said, why? And I said, so you won't fall. And she goes, what do you want? I said, 50 cents. And so closed the door, came back a few minutes later and said, here's your 50 cents. That was my first sale.
Crazy. Unbelievable. I love the answer, though. There's a lesson in that answer. What, right? Why? So you don't slip and fall. It wasn't because I want to make money. You solved the problem for her.
50 cents versus a fall. The dollarized value is priceless.
Unbelievable. So incredible. So you grew up there, and you went to the Yankee Stadium. And did you go to university? I think you went to.
I was a capital area scholar at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. And after college, I went directly to Harvard Business School. And then I did a stint, which I hated, in the Army, and then, went to work.
Awesome. Well, listen, I want to just sort of tell the listeners how our morning started. So this call is at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in Ontario, of course. And you wanted to call this morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 hours before our scheduled call. And, as you speak about in your books, but in the Rainmaker, you talk about, setting the appointment and the pre-call, sort of requirements and work to prepare for every single conversation with a client or customer. And, here you are many years later, with 11 best-selling books behind you, and you demanded a call this morning at 8 o'clock. And all you cared about, Jeffrey, was us. Okay, who am I speaking to? And what is the message? And what products do they carry? And do they compete with the banks, or do they work with the banks? And do they compete against each other? And explain to me about the business, Gary. And I thought that was so incredible, right? Like you were doing your homework, via that pre-call. And I know you talk about the preparation in everything you do in business. And it's funny because you quote in the book, it says 90% of all sales calls are won or lost before you speak to or see the customer for the first time. And it's funny because most people who have been in business for a long time and who are good at what they do, they stop doing pre-calls because they think their experience is a substitute for the pre-call planning. Can you, speak to that, please? And just remind us how important that is and why you do it and what you're trying to, garner from that pre-call and, because obviously, I mean, you're living it.
Well, just to reiterate, all sales that are written between salespeople and customers, 90% of those are won or lost in pre-call planning. That's just the way it is. So if those watching this show do not pre-call plan, you're not making as much money as you could. And those of you who are pre-call planning, the more you do it, the more diligent you become, the higher your hit rate will be. So it's so basic. If you watch the National Football League, you'll see the guys on the sideline, the coaches, and they have a board with all kinds of stuff on it. Those are all pre-call plans. It's 2 minutes to go and I'm on the 8-yard line. The score is blah, blah, blah. They have a plan for that. Mm-hmm. And so pre-call planning is a hallmark of the Rainmaker. Those of you out there, and none of you, of course, but present company excluded, there are salespeople who think, I've been in this business for 50 years, 30 years, 20 years. I know it all. I've been salesman of the year. I know it all. Those guys are not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. You must pre-call plan. I treat every sales call on a customer as a first sales call. Yeah. So you've been doing business with a client for 20 years. What's happened in that 20 years? Their bosses have changed. Their family life has changed. Their budgets have changed. Their salaries have changed. Everything's changed. And that means that the customer is different. So you treat every sales call as a first sales call. You will be better prepared. You'll be listening more, be asking more questions, and you won't wing it. You're not going to be casual. You're not going to be nonchalant. Selling is a profession. It is not, a lot of people don't realize it's a profession because to become a salesperson, all you have to do is fog a mirror and you get in many places, or jump higher than a Galapagos turtle. But the great salespeople, the Rainmakers, the top 5%, they look at it as a profession.
Yeah.
All professionals practice and pre-call plan.
Yeah, well, you talk about in your books, you talk about NFL coaches, right? I mean, they study and look at game film before every game, and they prepare for how that team played last week and what they could possibly, come up with that is new. So when we talk about the pre-call, let's just drill down on that a little bit. Today, it's great because you can learn so much on the internet. You can, Google everyone. You can find out there's social media and profiles, and you can find out what's going on. But do you also mean like go back to if they're a past customer, go back to the original file, remind yourself of their family makeup, of when the last time you did it, what area they live in. So it's very important, obviously, to keep intimate notes then on all of your clients, because if you have to go back, the more you can relate by, sharing an experience or something that you remember from a previous interaction, the more powerful it would be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So let's take that. Let's just take what you just said, the client file. Okay. So a guy makes a deal 5 years ago with a client. Well, I don't know what the average turnover of houses in Canada, but US is about 7 years. That means you made a deal with a guy 5 years ago. 2 years hence, they're going to be possibly buying, moving, selling, whatever. So you go back and you look at your file. Hopefully, you've put in the file not just what you learned pre and during the selling process, but why they bought. Mm-hmm. Why did they buy? Because they like the house facing south or whatever. So you should keep that file up to date because they're a guaranteed customer. If in fact they are going to move or whatever within a year or two, if you're in front of them, if you're keeping contact, they're going to call you. And so that file, which I call a customer value file, is critical. That's where really good salespeople make it. They don't try to get every single new customer, because the existing customers, the past customers, are really a huge basis for new deals. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that before, and I'll just sort of translate it to our space. I've said to people, listen, the customers that we've done business with in the past, if you want a customer for life, you have to talk to them for life, and you have to stay in touch with them. Oh. And they already know us. They've had experience with us. They know our product. The sales cycle is shorter. They refer more often. The cost of acquisition is less. But yet, so many of us are chasing new transactions all the time and new relationships, and new, obviously, water into the stream, is important. But the value of the existing database is that much more important. Maybe just talk and extrapolate on that a little bit, because I know in your books you always say, like, you've done business with a customer, you have a relationship. How do we set the next appointment to do more business, or to get an introduction?
Well, there's a difference between new clients and new deals. Mm-hmm. So you can do lots of new deals, new transactions with prior customers, especially if you're always asking the customer for a referral. I'll give you a specific illustration. A friend of mine started, he sold a business, and as a hobby, he wanted to become a car salesperson, of all people. But he loved cars. He was crazy about cars, especially exotic cars or high value cars. So he said to me, "What should I do?" So I said, "Well, you take your contact list, your Rolodex, or whatever you want to call it, and let everybody know you're now going to be selling you've sold your other business. You're going to be selling these cars." So what I told him to do, and what he did do, and now he was the number one salesman for Mercedes in the country.
Wow.
Like in weeks.
Wow.
He said to everybody he sold a car to, I said, "Call them on Monday after the week. If you sold them on Monday, call them next Monday. Call them on Sunday, call them the next Monday. Call the guy up and you say, 'Hey, how do you like the car?' You'll love it." I said, "Tell me, if I can ask you a question, is there anybody I can call, a friend of yours, a family member? I will give them the same deal I gave you." Now, because the customer is so satisfied, got such a great deal, regardless of what they think, they're always going to give you a name or two. And from that referral list, which we'll talk about more today, is how you build a business. There's nothing stronger than a satisfied, happy customer telling somebody else, "I did business with Joe. This guy's the real deal. I did business with Jane. You can count on her." That's how you get business.
Love it. I want to jump in, and I want to read a paragraph from the book, How to Become a Rainmaker. And anyone on this call, Jeffrey's got some incredible books. I mean, they're all awesome. I got 2 or 3 on my desk here that I also loved. How to Become a CEO, and this one too, How to Become a Fierce Competitor, is incredible. But this is ground zero. I want to read this to you. It's obey marketing's first commandment. And it says, the first commandment of getting and keeping customers is to treat each customer as you would treat yourself. Do you like to be overcharged? Do you like to be underserved? Do you like to be put on endless hold, overbooked, told your room isn't ready, falsely promised, shipped late, ignored, not thanked? Always put yourself in the shoes of a good customer. Ask the question, what would I want if I were the customer? The answer is what you should strive to provide. I mean, that is at its very basic fundamental. That is a terrific starting point for every interaction with every client. Do you want to just touch on that?
Well, it's probably one of the old rules, like from the Bible or something, the golden rule, do unto others as you do unto yourself. Customers, you have to put customers in the situation you're in to understand. For example, I had a car that got mispainted. So I went to the dealership, and very fancy place. And I said to somebody, "Can I talk to so-and-so about my car painting?" The guy said, "Hey, I just work here." I said, "Perchance I should talk to somebody who doesn't?" So, it's, if you are, maybe the word is empathetic. I don't know what the words are these days. But if you put yourself in the shoes of the customer, you are going to be more impactful. You're going to be more empathetic. You're going to be more understood by you must do exactly what you would do to yourself. So, for example, would you pay $10 more for a surgeon who's done the surgery 100 times, or a guy that just came out of medical school? Not knocking the guy that came out of medical school, but what you want is what the customer wants. and should never be afraid of giving the customer that, nor afraid of pricing it to value, in my view.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell a very similar story. I was buying a new boat a few years ago, a surf boat, and they're not cheap. And the boat that I wanted was out of a certain dealer in Kelowna. And I was referred to the owner of the dealership. And I went and saw him. His name was Don. And I said, I'm buying a new boat. I'm going to buy it right away. I'd really like to buy the Nautique. You're the Nautique dealer. And he goes, oh, yeah. I'm just really busy, Gary. Give me your number. I'll call you back later on today. So I said, no problem, Don. I'm only a few miles away. And, that day went by, and the next day went by, and the third day went by. And I finally called him and I said, Don, I said, I really want to make a decision here. I'd love someone to take me on a lake tour. And then it was, oh, yeah, I'll have Jeremy, our guy. Jeremy's going to call you. I'll get that done, today. So Jeremy did call. We had a quick conversation. I asked him for a few things. He goes, I'll get back to you later on today. 24 hours later, he hadn't gotten back to me. Finally, I said to him, listen, I am not going to beg you to spend this kind of money. I said, if this is what you're treating me like now, you can't even respond to me, then, and I went and I bought a Supra. I bought a different, because the Supra dealer, the young guy, was attentive, responded quickly, listened to my needs, said, Gary, you only have 2 months during the summer, and breakdown, we'll be there same day service. And, now here I am 3 years later, and I'll probably be in a Supra, forever, because, I love the experience. I want to read another one.
That is so what you just said. People in the audience are probably thinking, Jesus, what a dope that first dealership guy was.
Right.
Everybody in this audience, possible exceptions of 5, have done that.
Mm-hmm.
They've all done that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, believe it or not, the reason the guy did it, the dealer did it, is deep down, there's a fear of rejection. A hungry new salesperson that doesn't know anything, like the super kid, they don't realize it. So it's amazing how many people treat the customer unlike they would treat themselves. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you gave them a separate call, the fact that you gave them an order, and you didn't take it, it's like,
well,
malpractice.
Yeah, that's a great term for a malpractice. Well, and I think maybe it was a bit of this. I mean, I was referred, personally introduced to the owner of the dealership from one of our franchise owners, a gentleman by the name of Jason Zalo, a very good friend of mine who loves boats and knows them really well. And I think that he maybe thought that I was a slam dunk because I was referred to him directly. He's got the Nautique dealer, he's the only one in that town. And I thought that he, maybe just thought that it was okay if he was slow to respond or dismissive or aloof or too busy. And it wasn't okay. And it was really funny. And not to just, I called him back, a week later and said, I've gone with somebody else. Right. And he absolutely tore a strip off me. You're going to regret it. That's a terrible boat. And I said to him, hey, Don, I said, let me tell you this. I said, the way you just responded, I said, shame on you. If I ran my business this way, I said, I would never be in business. And, to his credit, 24 hours later, he calmed down and called me back and he said, Gary, the way I handled myself, I am so sorry. He goes, that was absolutely terrible. I hope I get another chance someday and I'll make it better. So, good for him, for making the effort. But I want to read another, because we're going to go into dollarization, because this is a strategy that you've created that I just think is going to resonate so well. Before we do, because it speaks to the same thing we're speaking of now. If you're okay, I want to read another paragraph out of your book.
Sure.
It's so powerful. So treat everybody you meet as a potential client. Rainmakers see the world and everyone in it as their market. Rainmakers know the world is small. They know that everyone knows someone. They know that anyone can become a client or refer a client or recommend a client or scuttle a promising relationship. Rainmakers treat non-clients as they do existing customers. They are polite to everyone. Rainmakers view everyone as influential. They know that business can come from unexpected places. And, that is to me like a lightning bolt, because I see people that when they're in front of a customer, they're turned on, but everywhere else, there's somebody else. Can you speak to that as well?
Let's say your kids are playing soccer, right? And you're at a soccer tournament and all the kids are from, relatively good towns or whatever. So their parents are all in business one way or another. They're executives of this or that. You can't stand on the sideline and scream at the ref. The ref could be the CEO, volunteer ref, CEO of a client. Everybody is an influencer or is a customer, one way or another. And what do you have to lose by being nice to someone who isn't? Why? What do you have to? What do you have to be? I went into a place in Avon, Connecticut, a little place called like Friendly's Ice Cream or something like that. And I saw this guy get up and pay his bill. $11, I found out later, $11.18. And he berated the young woman, probably high school age, summertime. He berated her over something. Maybe the rasher of bacon wasn't thick enough, whatever.
Right.
And I went up there afterwards, and there were 3 other kids. This is I saw this myself. I think I put it in my book, but I'm not sure I did it this way. This girl was in tears, and she was talking to these 3 other kids, 2 boys and a girl. They all went to the same high school. And coincidentally, 3 of them, one gal's mother was a psychiatrist, and the other 2 kids, their fathers were doctors in Simsbury, Connecticut. And Simsbury, Connecticut, so the guy who did it can, if he's on the line, can remember I'm the one that, he was a drug salesman from a pharmaceutical company. And he called on those 3 kids, families, parents, medical offices. And one kid said, I know that guy. I've seen him in my father's office. I'm calling my father right now. That was a high school kids working at an ice cream store. He lost 4 clients that day, forever.
Yeah.
And just like your friend called you, like the guy in the boat, he doesn't realize he just dissed you. He dissed the guy that referred you.
Right.
It's a double loss.
Yeah.
That's what's so stupid about that. You've got to, that's why let's talk about it. Ask me about referral selling and how important it is. You never know who can help you or hurt you. So why be nasty to people? 4 high school kids, 16, 15, I don't know, 17 years old, 4 customers. And those doctors know every other doctor, so you can be assured that this guy was either fired or relocated or didn't make any money to another territory. Because the doctors say to everybody, don't deal with this guy.
Yeah, that actually was in one of your books that I read. I saw that story and I recall it. Yeah, so I mean, so powerful. You also talk in your book about, and we're gonna jump right to referral selling because I don't want to miss that point. But before we do, you also talk about everyone is always watching. So like the receptionist, I mean, how many people that walk in and are impatient and are dismissive to a receptionist or, are grunt at them. The receptionist in any business, usually has a pretty good relationship and is a valuable, position. It's a first contact, the power they have. But you talk about the story of a receptionist that became an executive vice president.
Sure.
So talk to us about like receptionists and anyone in your orbit that you come across.
Well, let's just say you have a really good company you want to call on. Do you think they're going to put the dumbest, meanest, crappiest person in the world as a receptionist? Or are they going to put someone friendly and nice and efficient? Probably the latter. That person has undue influence. And oftentimes, that's a starting job for kids. Maybe they're out of college, maybe looking for a job, and they get a job as a receptionist. It's the first sales call against that supplier or that person coming in. And again, what does it hurt to be nice? She's somebody's sister, or he's somebody's father, somebody's uncle. It doesn't hurt to be. I have left more thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes on receptionist desks than all of our audience put together.
Yeah. Good for you. It's something that I really believe, and it seems so simple, but people forget. We just forget, like, oh my God, like everyone, you have a chapter, everyone's somebody's a somebody. Do you know what I mean? Like they're all connected.
I have one of my chapters, one of my other books is tip as if you were the tippee. Okay. So what's a tip today? A tip for the tippers, it could be $100,000 Wall Street bonus. Believe me, that's a tip. Okay. Everybody gets tips. But if you are working, like I tell the kids all the time, I take them out to breakfast, and I said, and I explained to them, grandchildren, explain to them, this is a gratuity. This is what a tip. I show them because they, of course, I drive them crazy. But I tell them you tip more for the women or men or wherever who are working for breakfast, because you don't do a tip based on the total price of the bill. You do a tip on the service and everything else. Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you come in work, breakfast is $20, dinner's whatever, 80, 100. And the tip based on that would be higher. They work just as hard. So I always show them the tip as if you were the tippee. And having been a waiter and all of those kinds of things, you realize that tip to that waits person, whether it doesn't matter what it. That's why in my new book I'm telling the kids, always have a bunch of littles in your wallet. Littles are 1s and 5s and 10s. You need those,
right?
Because you give a $5 bill to somebody. Last night my wife and I went to dinner at this nice place, a great young waiter, and I know they're not making a lot of money because not everybody there. So I did a substantial tip, but I had bought because they didn't have the right stuff. I bought a relatively expensive bottle of wine, and I had a glass or two. And I gave the bottle of wine to the waiter at the end.
Yeah.
Now, how many people will do that? And how many times will he tell someone, no, he doesn't know me from a bag of potato chips. But that's an impression forever. Forever. And I think so many of us could make more footprints and more statements out there. And a friend of mine just called me. I had Jack Kemp one time in a national sales meeting. He was a guy that was big. He was, I'm not sure if he's in the Hall of Fame, but NFL quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, and a terrific guy and and a friend of mine called me and he said that his father had been in a situation where he lost a deal, and Jack Kemp called him up and he said, Kemp is the only guy that calls me when I've lost. So that's something he'll never forget that either.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? The only guy who calls me when I've lost. Everyone calls when you win and when there's something to celebrate. But when things go bad, they don't call you. They don't reach out. They don't support, in many cases. Very, very cool. Let's jump in because you brought it up a couple times and I really want to hear it. Can you talk to us about referral selling?
Well, in almost all business-to-business selling, your customers are your most important asset. So referral selling is the magic of generating fees and generating customers. So, and here's the money magic. If you ask 100 people for a referral, 60% will give you a referral so that they know somebody in the market and whatever. Of that 60%, about 75% will be qualified. So the math comes down, and that's why you got to ask a lot of people. The math comes down basically that for every 10 referrals, depending on who you ask and so forth, you'll end up with three to four sales. And you got to have more than 10 to make it happen. But referral selling is unbelievable. A lot of people salespeople don't ask for referrals because they're afraid they're going to get rejected. But the magic of it is that people who are asked for referrals are flattered. They think, oh, this guy thinks I got some influence. And so consequently, going back to your boat story, Gary, when your friend referred you to this other guy, in order to reject you, he has to reject the referring person first. So getting a referral is so powerful because the customer has to reject, as your guy did. He didn't do it obliquely, but he did it. To reject the seller is to reject the referring person. Very hard to do. Referral selling is magic selling. And too many salespeople believe that asking for a referral is a tough thing to do. It's not. People love to do it.
Yeah, and especially when they've already had a relationship with you, Listen, if you're on here today and you're any of these points are resonating, do us a favor and give us a thumbs up on the Facebook chat if you like something that you're hearing. Helps us spread the word. Incredible. I wanna get to dollarization because, as I said, I think it's the number one strategy that resonated with me over the years, and it needs to be done with every relationship, every client relationship that we have. And dollarizing, and I'll just sort of set the stage for those listening. Dollarizing is, let's say when you have two products, you have, a mortgage rate with one of our clients and the customer, is dealing with another mortgage company. and the customer has contacted you, so clearly they're interested. They're looking for a mortgage, but they want to evaluate the difference of the two products, whether it's from the bank to another broker or bank to you or whatever it happens to be. So we have to help those clients evaluate the true cost of the difference. And I know Jeffrey's going to just talk about this, and then he has 6 steps for dollarizing, and I'm going to actually read out each step and just have them make a point on it. So maybe just go and just give us the overall theory of dollarizing and what it means so everyone can understand it.
Well, customers buy for 2 reasons: to solve a problem or to feel good. Now, in a consumer product like buying a sweater, the problem might be I'm freezing, so I need a sweater. The feel good might be I want to look great for this dance or something. But in things that, and the calculus on that changes, but in terms of business to business or something to do with serious money, and that could be a consumer product as well, like putting in an alarm system or something, the solving the problem there's only 3 solutions: reduce your cost or eliminate your cost, to increase your gross margin sales, or to avoid a catastrophic event. Those are the only 3 things. They manifest themselves a million ways. So price and price differential is just part, and the modest part, usually 7% or less than the cost of doing something. So the salesman's job is to calculate the value the customer will get from the services they provide. Conversely, calculate the cost consequences of not going with you. So what you do is you dollarize the benefits you supply the customer. Like, for example, let's say, excuse me, there are 2 mortgages, and one guy is a few points higher or whatever, a little bit higher. But the lower priced mortgage may have codicils in the mortgage that come back and haunt the buyer. Like, you got to pay off X amount in 5 years or something.
Payment penalties, interest rate differential, all those costs that we understand that consumers don't.
Right, and that's right. And so the salesperson has to be able to dollarize the difference between 1% and 2%. Dollarize that difference. That's the premium price you're selling. And if your dollarized value is better, which it almost always is, and you appeal to the customer's feel good, you're going to win those deals 75% of the time. Mm. Selling on price is a fool's errand, okay? I can't tell you how many times at Fox & Company and now Fox Business Advisor, guy says to me, Jeffrey, we talked to so-and-so and their prices are $20,000 lower than yours. I go, yeah, so? What do I care? I mean, I said, can I tell you why we're not the lowest priced product? The lowest priced product is 0. Okay, so if you're going to buy 2 hammers and the one is 0, I mean, it's the whole point is what is the value the customer gets from your service. So, for example, let's say it's a mortgage, and you can provide that mortgage at a slightly higher interest rate, but you don't have all the codicils and paybacks, and you can get the guy the mortgage in a week, and the other guy's going to go through the banker's people, and it's 4 weeks. What is the cost of waiting 3 extra weeks? There's a value to that. So everybody who's watching this has to understand, what value do you bring to the customer? Are you faster? Are you smarter? Can you eliminate downstream costs? Can you articulate those to the customer? And then when you actually calculate the difference over a 15-year mortgage or 20 or 30, whatever that is, that small little percent is nothing on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. We've done some work with some of the largest financiers of multifamily housing in the United States, and we did the research, and we've called a lot of the customers. How many customers do you think remembered the interest rate they paid?
No, we have this conversation like
One, zero.
never, right? They'll go, I don't know what my rate was or what I paid. Like they have no idea.
But they remember the post service. They remember the guy said, "Oh yeah, we're good," and then they never showed up, and our insurance rates went through the roof, and all that jazz. So people have to understand the value they have, and the value they bring to the customer. Price is, and it's not just price; it's the differential price.
Right. So I'm going to make a point on that and sort of translate it for the Canadian space here. So as an example, most customers that are coming back to you and saying somebody else has a lower rate and I have to go with them because it's the lower rate. Most customers don't know the true cost between 1.99 and 2.4. They don't know. They've never done the math. They don't know that it might cost them $6 a month over the term of that mortgage. Inconsequential. And they also don't know that maybe by getting that mortgage at where they got it before, maybe at one of the local banks or another mortgage company, that maybe that's a collateral mortgage where they're not only where it's actually, it's wrapped on, it's a very a fulsome mortgage that wraps everything up. They don't know about IRD in the event that something happens, 3 years later and they have to get out and they're going to pay the interest rate differential or the cost to break. And I'm speaking for the consumer that might be listening as well. They don't understand the true cost of breaking that mortgage. So the difference between getting, a mortgage that was maybe a few basis points higher could only be a few dollars a month. But more importantly, in the event that they have to pay it out early, there could be a $15,000 or $20,000 penalty, which actually makes the true effective rate, 15% or 14% or 12%. And, it's absolutely crazy that we don't say, and whether you're negotiating, whether your rate's a few points higher or a few points lower, here is the dollarized amount that'll cost you per month, per year, per 5-year term, and per 25-year amortization.
Right.
And when you calculate it and lay it out, it helps that decision-making ability.
Well, and also if you do that and relate it to something, like let's say, and everybody out here, everybody watching, get your calculators out. On a 20-year mortgage, I don't know what a $300,000 20-year mortgage, what's the difference between 1.99 and 2.04? Quick, because you got your calculators out, right? Boom, boom, boom. All right, now divide that by 20 years times 12, 240, or 20 years times 52, whatever number that is. Divide that difference. What's your number? That's the number you got to show your customer. So, Mr. Customer, let's really talk about your rate. The difference in can I help you calculate that? Yeah. Okay, it's $14 a month. It's $5 a month. That's a latte. That's one latte a month. You want to meet every Saturday for the next 5 years and I'll buy you a latte? The point is that once you calculate and dollarize the difference, the price premium difference, not the price, the difference, you can relate it to something the guy understands, because everything is relative in a way. So $5 a month or whatever the number is, you can then relate it to saying, okay, that's like going to the movies twice a year or something. There's a million ways to diminish that price differential. And meanwhile, back on the ranch, you're talking about other consequences. Why is the bank at a lower price? Maybe they want to bring you in, Mr. Customer, because they know you're going to trade houses every 4 years and you have a prepayment penalty. And by the way, Gary, you were using, and this is for your audience here, IRB and some other things.
IRD, yeah.
Don't use that with the customer.
Right.
The customer doesn't know what IRD is. Customer doesn't know what basis points are. The customer knows, I desperately want to get this house and I'm worried whether I can maintain the lawn or whatever. So don't talk in jargon, always talk in English. And that's one of our jobs at Boxing Company. We help our clients. A lot of them are high tech, one way or another. Making a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon is just as technical as making silicon chip wafer, believe it or not. How do we change their language into English? And that's what great salespeople do. They're asking questions quietly, patiently, listening, asking questions, and helping the customer who doesn't understand, who doesn't want to be told they don't understand, who doesn't want to be embarrassed because they don't understand. Yes, your BP percentage over your IRD times blah, 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 blah. They lost the guy.
Yeah.
They lost the guy. And so you'll see great salespeople that could be double mechanical engineers who don't talk like that.
Right.
They are questioning. They ask questions. They don't do the talking. They listen. They help the customer understand what's in the best interest of the customer, because we talked earlier, you do for the customer what you do for yourself. So if you really believe in your heart of hearts that the difference your 2.04 is a much better value than 1.99, you have to articulate that and dollarize it for the customer. They'll make the emotional decision.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I just listen. Anyone on this podcast right now, order that book. I mean, it goes into specific stories. You talk about, someone buying paint. One paint is $10 a gallon. The other is $18 a gallon. But on the $18 a gallon paint, it has more pigments. So you only need one coat instead of two, and dollarizing that, and the speed of application. And I love the no jargon. We think that we know our business, and we think talking fancy attracts people to us, that it builds credibility, and they think we're smart and they'll choose us. It actually repels people. Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, that's just that itself, that explanation, is so incredibly valuable. I want to talk about something else really quickly. I'm going to read another insert from here because it's yet so simple. But when I kicked off this call, I said, what I love most about Jeffrey Fox is I love his down-to-earth, no-nonsense approach to back to the basics that we all forget. Returning phone calls is a basic courtesy, but not many people do it. Rainmakers return all calls every day. They return everyone's calls, customers, prospects, suppliers, job seekers, parents. Rainmakers are not too big, not too important, not too busy, not too successful. Fast return of phone calls is a point of difference. When you return a person's phone call, that person feels respected, important, listened to, and appreciated. And it's funny because like speed of response, like returning phone calls, I believe that it is one of the true wealth secrets. I would love to hear your perspective because there's a whole chapter that goes into that.
So the guy is calling you. Let me ask you a question. Let's say we leave a customer calls you. You don't know if it's a customer, a prospect, a referring thing, or anything. And today, and this is a problem, a lot of my clients tell me about the quote unquote millennials. They let it go to voicemail, or it's an email, or it's a text. Somebody calls you, they're not calling to see what's the weather like in Chester, Connecticut, or what's the dress code in Ontario or Ottawa or wherever. They have a problem. They have found you, rightly, wrongly, referred, whatever. Those people must be contacted immediately. And if you were the customer, like I was a couple of weeks ago, and I had a perforated appendix and didn't know it, and I called the clinic, and if the clinic or hospital didn't call me back in 12 hours, we wouldn't be having this interview today, right?
Wow.
You need to be called back immediately. And I have clients that say, that phone rings, we don't care if it's a pizza guy saying I'm here. You answer the phone. It's polite. It's courteous. It's business. And when you first started out and you had your little office and you were worried about paying the rent, I'm talking to people out here now, and you were worried about paying the rent, and you worked for the bank for 8 years and you knew that was a dead end, and now you have your own business. When that phone rang, you answered it. Why? Because it could have been a customer. Same thing today. And you always want your returns. Let's say you call the guy back after because he's a pain in the ass, but a customer, call him back at the end of the day. You always leave some message. Yes, I'm on top of the case. I'll call you back. And the other thing, by the way, this is a little teeny small point in my next book. It's go small that no one will do it. I don't care if you talk to that guy once a day for 30 years. If you send a text, you send an email, put your telephone number in it. Feel free to call me at 860-559-6421. We're so busy today. You see the text, people don't even put their names on it. I'm supposed to remember 200,000 telephone numbers where the names are. You've got to think like yourself. So I think that, especially today with COVID, the phone's a pretty powerful weapon today for selling. Yeah. Always answer the phone. Always return the phone call if you couldn't get there within 24 hours. Be a pro. Be like your customer wants you to be.
I want to just read a couple of excerpts from the Rainmaker and the Rainmaker's credo. Cherish customers at all times. Treat customers as you would your best friend. Listen to and decipher their needs by asking the right questions. Dollarizing your product value every time. Always give customers a little bit extra, more than they expected. I call it a delightful surprise. Thank each customer sincerely and thank them often. And the other thing that I want to just talk to you about really quickly, and this is more for larger operations that have teams and receptionists, and is you talk about every single employee must know and must be reminded that somehow their only job is to be involved in identifying, attracting, getting, keeping customers. Their primary job is getting and keeping our clients. So regardless of what you think your role is in your company, and you as a leader, you need to make sure that it's the responsibility for the lifeblood of the business to have everyone understanding your product, your value, your benefit, and everyone is responsible to bring business in. Do you want to just talk to that?
So I had a woman call me. One of our guys in our company were driving back from someplace, and she calls me and said, "Jeffrey, when you get back in the office, we have to have a discussion of roles." And I thought she was talking about ROLL roles, like in the little cafeteria, a little eating place we had. She was talking about ROLE roles. I said, "What is it?" She said, "Well, Elaine, the receptionist, and she should be reporting to me." I said, "The only people we report to are our clients. We don't report to each other. I don't care if you take summers off. I don't care. As long as we deal with our client." And I had a client in Switzerland. And I don't know if you guys have ever done business in Switzerland, but I mean, like every door is locked in the offices and no one talks to each other. It's like unbelievable. CEO of a company would call our office just to hear our receptionist answer the phone because she was such a breath of fresh air. And she didn't care whether you were king, queen, or whatever. You were treated the same, nicely, politely. Everybody in a company works for the customers, directly or indirectly. Without those customers, nobody gets paid. Mortgages don't get paid. Car payments don't get paid. School tuitions don't get paid. The customer is always everybody's responsibility. Everybody's. I think I made my mark sometimes in smaller companies early on in my career when I did things that no one else would do. No one else would do. The dirty jobs that help the customer. Somehow, doing the dirty job gets back to the boss if you work in a good company.
Well, for any of you who know us or know our company, with what Jeffrey just said, you can sure tell that his book had a massive influence on Dominion Lending Centers, because exactly what he said, no hierarchy, no one's more important. A good idea comes from the person with the best idea, not worrying about when somebody comes and goes and how long they work, and everyone's job is to take care of it. You've heard us say it a million times, you don't work for us, we work for you. Our job is to make you. This is foundationally from what Jeffrey has been teaching for many, many, many years. Honestly, it gave me goosebumps that last minute, because what you said is just who we are as an operation, and I'm so grateful to hear it come from you, Jeffrey. Thank you for that. It's amazing. So let me ask you, we got a few minutes left.
Sure.
So, and God, I got to have you back, because I just feel like I'm scratching the surface. I haven't had any guests back yet, because I haven't felt like I needed to get more of somebody's time. But so in your opinion, what are some of and we've talked a lot of them today. Is there any other things that you think are some of the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople make? Anything else that comes to mind that just go like, don't do this, don't do that?
Well, I think that certain mistakes you see are usually a manifestation of the fact that the guy does not see him or herself as a professional. Okay, you wouldn't walk out onto Yankee Stadium with your uniform tattered and torn. So the great professional salespeople understand it's a profession. They practice their profession. They love their profession. They understand why they exist and how it helps their customers. They're not afraid of their value. They're not afraid of their price. And they understand to really, I mean, would a surgeon ever walk into your room and say, what leg are we amputating? They pre-call plan. I used to live in an area, lived on an island, another one, and I had to fly here and there to places no one knows. And I had to get a small airplane, the two spinner type things. I'd get there in the morning, right? And the guy'd be walking around the plane. He'd be going, prop up, yep, gas up, yeah, wheels work. I liked that. I want him to walk around that plane and check it. That's pre-call planning. I'd say to him, Alan, how you feeling today? He goes, good. I said, you get a good night's sleep? Yeah. When was your last medical appointment? When you're in that plane, that's a sales call.
Right.
Pre-call planning, it lands and it takes off. Now, you're not going to make every sale. But trust me, if you do these things, you'll make a higher percentage. And professional athletes compete for inches. All we have to do is the inches. Be better dressed than the guy you see that day. Arrive 5 minutes before your call. Make sure you pre-call plan. Make sure you know how to pronounce everybody's name. You know, in America and Canada, for example, you know, not everybody's Russian, not everybody's Chinese. Got a million different names. We have to know how to pronounce them. That's pre-call planning.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a situation like that yesterday. I sent a small gift to one of our brokers back east, and I had just scribbled on a Post-it note, his name really quickly amongst other things with something that I wanted to say on the message. And when I had scribbled it quickly and spelled the name wrong. And unfortunately, we just got confused here and sent the actual Post-it note, and I was sick over it because I can't. The least we can do is know somebody's name and how to pronounce it and how to spell it. Now we make mistakes, but honestly, I've been thinking about it for 24 hours because it's unacceptable. It was a mistake.
Oh yeah, no, I get it.
I shouldn't have made it.
I totally get it.
Yeah, really beat me up.
In my briefcase, I have note cards, Fox and Company, Jeffrey Fox rather. I have the note card. I have the envelopes. I leave a meeting. I write a note to somebody, handwritten note. Thank you for this. Appreciate this. I'll do this. Handwritten notes are a point of difference. I happen to believe letters on your corporate stationery, a personal letter really written to the guy, and not some 100,000, whatever they call them today.
Off, yeah.
Those are points of difference.
Right.
The orchid that I leave and send the next day, it's a point of difference. These are the things, and they're not expensive, and they're not hard to do. They're little things. Right. And, a guy that goes out to play the outfield you can see high school kids do it, college, they forget their sunglasses. You don't see a pro forget their sunglasses. Yeah. So it's what people realize, that selling is a profession, but people to people are very forgiving. If you dollarize your value, if you pre-call plan, if you ask thoughtful questions, prepared in advance, you're not going to be the smartest guy in the meeting. You're not going to razzle dazzle them with your jargon and immense knowledge of whatever. That's how you win. That's how you win. And by the way, ask for the order. Always ask for the order. 100% of the time. That's a separation also. 90% of all salespeople, present company excluded on this call, of course, don't ask for the order.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing you just touched about on communication is I refer to it over the years as words that work, but never, ever, send something that says Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, Happy Anniversary. Take the effort and just go, oh my God, it's your birthday. It's a special day. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. Reach out, call. If you're sending Christmas cards and it's just a stamp, top of the season, Merry Christmas, save your money. Never send them again. Because you're repelling. You're not attracting, you're repelling.
How about sending an electronic Christmas card with deer jumping over fences and to 1,000 people. And if you don't answer it, you get a reminder. You didn't answer this guy's Christmas. That's so bunk. To me, a Christmas card is a sales call.
Right.
I have them designed for Fox and Company. We have different Christmas cards every year with a fox in it. Oh, whatever. And I put in there, put $100,000 in your budget for Fox and Company next year. It's sacrilegious. I get that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the guy knows I'm not writing a Christmas card just because I care. Right. I'm writing a Christmas card so we can do business.
Right.
I know it's sacrilegious. Every single year, I will get a handful, 10, 6, whatever. Clients call me, hey, geez, I'm glad you got in touch with me because we got this problem. It's business. Everybody gets it.
Right.
My wife said to me, we're not doing it again this year. I will sit down. I've sitting down and handwritten out a note on every Christmas card, every single time to that person.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I've done it for years and years and years. And I didn't know this once, but a secretary for a CEO of a big client of ours called me one time and she said, Jeffrey, I missed your last Christmas card. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I have collected all your Christmas cards for 22 years. She's the executive assistant to the CEO. Think I can get a call? Think I can get a meeting? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime you want to get through, you get fast tracked, you get to the front of the line. Those are the little secrets that are so easy to do, but you know what? Most highly disregarded. It's absolutely incredible. Last question for you. What characteristic do you most value in a person?
When I hire people and when I help hire people for our clients, I look at 3 eyes. 3 eyes. Intelligence, I can do it, and integrity. I don't care about experience in the industry. I don't care about age, color, sex, nothing. I've seen rainmakers at 5 years old and at 60,000 years old. I look for intelligence, I can do it, and integrity. And if you don't have integrity, the other 2 don't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love it. And listen, I told a fib. I got 1 or 2 quick more short ones for you. I'm sorry. I want to ask this. So you talk about, being asked about your 10 best books. Like, what is your favorite book, number 1, and number 2 at the same time? What do you do to level up? Like how do you keep yourself? You're so engaged. You're so energetic. You tell terrific stories. What do you read? What inspires you?
Well, first of all, on the story of my books, and I don't really know. I don't know if it's 10, 12, or whatever. But that's like asking me which of my kids do I love the most, right? Yeah. And so that's my standard answer. I kind of like How to Become a Rainmaker. I know it was voted one of the 100 best business books ever written. It's been republished. I like a book that no one ever bought called Rain, What a Paperboy Learned About Business. It's a great little book. I got my ego in the way of that. How do I keep the momentum and the level up that you said? I take a walk every morning. Okay. I get up, I feed the dogs, give them their insulin shots because one of them's old or whatever. And I take a walk. And during that walk, I compose short stories in my head. Or something, or I have a client problem. I focus just on that when I'm walking. And so I actually do the dialogue in my head and everything on short stories. I do that. I know they're terrible short stories, but they're but whatever. And so then what you're doing is you're kind of not wasting your time walking like I used to think. So I do the walk. I'm by myself. It's up and down hills and all that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking about that. And so the short story I wrote the other day in my mind's eye was called Chimneys. And about an Italian guy that builds chimneys for a kind of a dishonest guy. And the dishonest guy won't pay him. And he calls him a week later and says, my house is full of smoke. And the chimney guy goes over and says, I'll fix it. And he doubles the price. And the guy says, well, he gets up on top and he drops a rock through the chimney and it breaks the pane of glass he put between the layers of bricks. And the fireplace worked. So that's my
Yeah, good for you.
hobby.
You know what? That's a great, I mean, whatever it takes, right, to get out and to redevelop and think and get the exercise. That's great. So what we're going to do is period time. We're going to wrap this call. Before I do, I just want to say a couple of things. First Canadian Title FCT, you're a great partner. Thank you for all the work around title insurance and the services that you provide. Listen, if you have been enjoying this call, guys, you're going to see it on my Facebook. It's going to have the picture of Jeffrey on there. You can fast forward right through the countdown clock and you can share that link. There was so much goodness and so much strategy and so many great pieces of advice on this call. Please forward it, share it. Also, reach out on social media. It's very important to me, guys. I mean, you know, you've heard me say before that, you know, a rising tide rises all boats, I think is the saying. And, you know, if you like what we're doing on these level up calls and you're finding value for your business, please, you know, repost something that we do or make your comment or share it. We really appreciate all your feedback on that. It's super cool. And thank you to all of the DLC, MCC, and, you know, MA partners, our lenders, our insurers. And to any one of you on the call that was just from the outside in, one of my friends, please send me a message or let me know what you think. I am the easiest guy in the Canadian finance space to get a hold of, guys. You know that. Gary@dlc.ca. Please reach out. Give me personal feedback. And we have a whole bunch of other great guests coming. Michael Gerber is coming. Dr. Drew from the US is coming. We're getting very close to finishing up a call with hopefully get Evan Siddell on before he leaves office here in Canada. We got lots of good stuff coming. So, but today is about celebrating Jeffrey. I meant that, Jeffrey. I have never not finished the call. I've never finished a call and said, holy Toledo's, I got to get this guy on again. I guess you speak my language, and it's the credo that we have. If I could hug you right now through the screen, it would be a squishy one, right? I am so grateful and so thoughtful. We're going to send you out a little care package here. Look for it in the next 2 to 3 weeks, just for making the time and being so generous. And honestly, just a lovely, gracious human being. Thank you so much today.
Thank you.
All right, Team DLC, Level Up fans, podcast, anyone who tuned in, thank you for giving us an hour of your time. We appreciated it, and we'll see you soon. Take care.